All right, so we're going to make a graph now. The graph is going to require that we first choose our data. So remember, choosing cells means clicking from the center of a cell and then dragging your mouse to highlight everything you want to choose. I'm going to include choosing the titles. Now, in class, a couple of you saw that if you didn't choose the titles, your legend didn't show up the way you maybe wanted it to, which is fine, but you may want it to show up using the titles. So I'm going to click from my A1 cell from the center and drag my cursor down to my 170,000 down here for 12 years so that I've selected all of that, both of those rows A and B, and my columns, both of my columns A and B, and my rows 1 through 14. Now, of course, your pattern could have continued further. You could even select and drag the patterns further if you wanted to. I'm going to stick with this. It fits in my screen, and we're going to make a chart. The way we make a chart is we go to Insert right here. And I'm zoomed in a little bit, so it's cutting off my menu, but you can still see the chart option down here. So this is a chart. Now, this is not the chart we want. We have to find the chart we want. And so we're luckily in the Chart Types tab. You'll notice there's a Recommendations tab. It has no recommendations for us. Chart Types, and then Customization, the way we can change the graph. So let's choose the right chart type. And we discussed in class that the right chart type is a scatter plot. So here's my scatter plot. And I asked you in class, how could this be improved? Well, the title is not an appropriate title. The axes aren't titled appropriately. You probably want a line through the dots. The dots are helpful, but most of us drew a line through those dots. And maybe some more grid lines. There are lots of different things you might want to be different here. So we're going to go to the Customization tab, which allows us to change all of these. I can change the title. What should we make this? Population of a Midwestern town. That seems reasonable. That's what we were talking about. So now my title updates. I can change the font, size, and color, and the actual font itself here. So maybe I want to make this a wee bit bigger. Perhaps I'm very much interested in using a purple font color. And maybe I'm not too thrilled with Arial. Perhaps I'd like to use, let's use this Garamond thing here. That looks nice. When you change the font, it changes the font for the whole graph. It will not let you use different fonts throughout the graph for a reason. You may remember from the design requirements of your poster that using lots of different fonts makes it kind of busy and a little distracting. So Google Sheets limits how many fonts you can use to 1. The legend is the same way. You can change where it's at. I'm going to put it along the bottom because that gives us a little bit more space. So now it's moved down here. And you can make it italicized if you would like. You can change the size, you can change the color, etc. I'm going to leave it like this. You can also change the background color. Perhaps with my purple, I'm going to use complementary colors and put in some yellow. That is quite bright. Let's dim that back a bit. All right. Keep going. Ignore this maximize button. You can click on it, but you may find that it changes things in a way you're not very interested in. If you do and you find you can't get back to what you want it to be, just let me know and I can message you about that. But I'm going to not click it for that reason. Down here in my little axis set of features, I'm going to change the horizontal axis title, which is years since 1990. Again, I can change the font size, the font color. I'm going to choose my same purple here to be consistent. Same thing with the numbers. I'll make those purple too. I can make them both bold to stand out a little bit better. I don't know that I like an italicized title, so I'm going to change that. Let's see. Anything else? You can change the min and the maximum of your axis. Right now it goes from 0 to 16, so I could change this to be from, say, 0 to 12 if I wanted to instead. So there, that changed the axis layout. It also changed the years here. And that's based on how many grid lines there are. So right down below this min and max, I've got this number of grid lines. And it is the number of grid lines. So if you see right now, major grid lines, there are 5. So if I went through and counted 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There are 5 grid lines. If I want more of them, if I want more lines to show up, I have to change this to being some larger number. I don't know that I particularly like 10, so let's try 8. Oh, it could be a bit better here, maybe 6. 6 looks nice. It's going up by 2 years each. So that seems reasonable. Minor grid lines, if you wanted a line at every single year, you could add in a minor grid line in between each of these numbers. Again, it's the number of grid lines. So here is the number of grid lines, say, between 0 and 2. I would just like a single grid line where 1 would be. So I'm going to put in 1 minor grid line. You can change the color so that it is the same as the major grid line, if you'd like, so that they show up the same. I might actually even make my grid lines a little bit darker than that, so they show up with my yellow background. Okay, so that's looking pretty good with my grid lines. That's pretty much it in terms of what I want for my horizontal axis. I'm going to go back up to the top here and actually change this to left vertical. That clears everything out. I will put in the title being population. Again, I think I'm going to change this to purple for both things. Take out the italicization and bold both of them. That's what I did on my horizontal axis. I'm going to do it on the vertical as well. And let's see, lastly, I'm going to change, I don't think I'm going to change anything with the min and the max here. They seem pretty good. The grid lines, though, it's going up by 100,000 each time. I've got 5 grid lines again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see if I can get more in there that I like. 6. 6 seems maybe helpful. Maybe 8. 8 pushed out the 400,000, so if I wanted that to be higher up in the graph, I could bring that back in again. But I think I like this here. It's going up by 50,000 each time. And again, I can put in a minor grid line if I'd like. And I think I'm going to make these. Did I use that one? I think I used that one before. I believe that all looks like the same color now. And so I've got slightly darker grid lines in here with some black outlined axes, my title, my titles, my titles, and the very last thing I'm going to do is change my legend here. So I'm going to go down here to change my legend. If you can hear the dog barking, it's because there is a dad and his child walking outside. If you can't, I ignore that because I can. Okay, let's go down to the legend. This is called the series here. And it says population in thousands, which you don't really have a choice to change that, but it's because we chose the titles on the spreadsheet, the table that we made. So I'm going to change the color of my dots to this purple I'm using. So now I've got a purple-yellow motif going on over here. I can change the size of the dots if I want them to be smaller. I don't really want them to be smaller. I can change the shape. I can make them squares. You can make them stars. I am much more interested in keeping a circle, however. And then I'm not going to label the dots or anything, but I am going to put in a trend line. So down here at the very bottom, this idea for an option of a trend line. We must choose linear. Linear kind of makes the most sense for the fact that we have linear models as the title of our activity. So linear, the fact that it is a straight line. We will talk about exponential next week. But for now, let's choose a linear trend line. And now it opens up all these other options down here, including color. It automatically chose purple because I had purple dots, which was nice of it. And then it put in some more stuff in the legend down here to show how, like what color that was showing up essentially. But you have one interesting option here in terms of the label. you can have it label it with the equation of the line. So there we use different variables than we used, right? We use P and T, but this is our formula for the line. It does use scientific notation, you'll notice, for the starting value. So we may have to convert that from scientific notation back to a regular number ourselves. But this is our equation of our line, essentially. And I think that's about it for our chart. I'm going to have to zoom out just a little bit there and then click Insert the chart to get that in there. Now, of course, you may not have the same colors I have or anything like that, but you should have roughly the same kind of a chart. And here it is in my Google Sheet. If you ever want to go through and edit something, say you click Insert before you're done and you say, oh no, I forgot a title, oh, I want to move my legend, go ahead and click this little corner box here and go to Advanced Edit. It'll open it all right back up again for you, and you can just update it when you're done. All right, I think that's it. If you have any questions, email me or your other instructor, and yeah, I think that's it.